My name is Rita Isbell, and I'm the oldest sister of Errol Lindsay. Whatever your name is, Satan.
He is pure evil, but you'd never know it by looking at him. But when you hear him, that's another story. His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen?
I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you, mother. I hate you. This is out of control. Don't Jeffrey, I kill you. Look at me, mother. I kill you.
What's your name, fast?
I kill you.
Welcome to the Detective Starborn podcast.
Hello, dear listeners. We're thrilled to have you back in the world of mysterious crimes and detective stories.
Before we begin, we have a small request. If you enjoy what we do, please subscribe to our podcast and hit that like button.
Your support really helps us grow and create even more interesting stories for you.
Just a reminder, new episodes come out every single day, so make sure you don't miss out.
We can't wait to share today's incredible case with you.
Now, let's dive into today's story.
You know, Sarah, there are some cases that, even after all these years of researching true crime, still manage to make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. We usually talk about the who and the how, but today is really about the why, or maybe the terrifying lack of a why.
I know exactly what you mean, William. It's the kind of story that makes you look at your neighbors a little differently. It makes you wonder what's happening behind those closed doors down the hall. We're taking a trip back to July 1991 in Milwaukee. Just imagine a sweltering summer. The air is thick, humid, and in this one rundown apartment building on North 25th Street, the air was thick with something else entirely.
The smell. Reading the reports, that's the detail that sticks with me. The tenants had been complaining for weeks. Can you imagine living with a stench that seeps through the vents, clings to your wallpaper, curls under your locked doors?
It's horrific. And the excuses? Oh, the excuses. People said it was spoiled meat, or maybe the plumbing was backed up. But there was one man in apartment 213 who always had a polite, quiet explanation.
Always polite, always alone. That's the scary part, isn't it? The mask of civility. We are talking, of course, about Jeffrey Dahmer.
The Milwaukee Cannibal. I think if you say his name, almost everyone knows who he is. He is perhaps the most infamous serial killer of all time. But today, William, I want us to really peel back the layers. We aren't just recounting the gore. I want to understand the disintegration of a human soul. How does a quiet boy from a middle-class home become this?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the ultimate debate of nature versus nurture. Was he born a monster, or was he made into one? So let's unbuckle our seatbelts, as the saying goes, and crash right into this. We have to start at the beginning, before the headlines.
Right. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, born May 21st, 1960 in Milwaukee. On the surface, it looks like the American dream, doesn't it? Lionel was a chemist, Joyce was a teletype instructor, 2 kids, Jeffrey and David, a nice house.
But we know that nice house is often just a facade. Lionel Dahmer wrote a book later, which is a fascinating, albeit heartbreaking read. He admitted the home was marked by constant tension. Joyce suffered from severe anxiety. She was a hypochondriac. And Lionel, he was absorbed in his work. He was emotionally absent.
It sounds like a recipe for isolation. You have a mother who is struggling with her own mental health and a father who is burying himself in academia to avoid the chaos at home. And caught in the middle is this little boy. And then, when Jeffrey is about 4, maybe 6 years old, something happens. A medical procedure.
The double hernia surgery.
Yes. Now, William, I know you have thoughts on this. Some psychologists, and even Lionel himself, speculated that this surgery was a turning point. It was invasive, it was painful, and back then, they didn't manage pain for children the way they do now.
It's a compelling theory, Sarah. The idea is that the trauma of the surgery, the feeling of violation, led to this sense of disconnection. Lionel said that after the surgery, Jeffrey changed. He went from a happy, energetic toddler to this withdrawn, quiet, emotionally distant child. But I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go on.
Plenty of children undergo surgery. Plenty of children have traumatic medical experiences. They don't grow up to dissolve people in acid. I feel like pointing to a hernia surgery is, well, it's grasping for a simple cause for a complex evil. It might have been a factor, sure, but the catalyst? I don't know.
I agree with you. It feels like we're looking for a switch that was flipped. But psychopathy is usually a slow burn, isn't it? It's an accumulation of things. And speaking of accumulation, the family moved a lot.
Milwaukee to Doylestown, Ohio, then eventually Bath Township.
Moving is hard on any kid, but for a kid who is already socially awkward and withdrawn, it's devastating. You never get to form roots, you never learn how to connect. And so, where does he turn? He turns inward, and he turns to the woods behind his house.
This is where the red flags start waving frantically. The disturbing curiosity with death. We aren't talking about a kid poking a dead bird with a stick once. We are talking about collecting roadkill, dissecting animals, and dissolving flesh from bones using chemicals.
That specific detail, using chemicals to strip the flesh, that sends a shiver down my spine, because that is exactly what he does later to human beings. He was rehearsing Sarah. He was practicing the methodology of disposal when he was just a child.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Lionel was a chemist. Jeffrey had access to these things, or at least the knowledge of them. And you have to wonder, where were the parents? I mean, if my son was in the backyard dissolving a squirrel in a jar of acid, I'd like to think I'd notice. Lionel actually mentioned he thought it was a scientific interest. He thought, oh, my son is curious about biology like I am about chemistry. It's a tragic misinterpretation. But there was one incident that went beyond scientific curiosity, the dog's head on a stick.
That one is, yeah, he impaled a dog's head on a stick in the woods. That is not science. That is sadism. That is a totem.
However, there is a nuance here that is important to the psychological profile. He generally didn't kill the animals. He was obsessed with things that were dead. He wasn't the classic sadist who tortured living things for pleasure, at least not yet. He wanted the object, the dead, static object.
There was that moment with the Irish setter, though. Do you remember that?
Yes, that's crucial. He admitted he intended to kill this dog, skin it, dissect it, but he said when the dog looked into his eyes, he couldn't do it. He let it go.
That is so fascinating to me. It shows there was still a flicker of empathy there, a tiny dying ember of humanity. He couldn't kill something that was looking back at him, something that was acknowledging him as a person. It suggests that his later crimes were about depersonalizing the victims, making them objects so he didn't have to deal with that look.
Exactly. He wanted control, not necessarily the act of inflicting pain, but total possession. But as he hits high school, things spiral. The empathy fades and the darkness takes over. And what pours gasoline on that fire?
Alcohol. Oh, the alcohol. It was severe. We're talking about a high schooler drinking straight hard liquor in class, hiding bottles in his locker. He was essentially anesthetizing himself against his own mind.
He was grappling with his sexuality in the 70s in the Midwest. He knew he was gay, but he also had these other urges. He fantasized about dominating unconscious men, about dead bodies. Imagine the turmoil of having those thoughts and trying to drown them in scotch every single day.
It's tragic, in a way. Not to excuse him, obviously, but if there had been intervention then, therapy, acceptance, maybe the outcome changes. But instead, he's totally alone. No friends, no romantic partners, just him and the bottle.
And then the ultimate abandonment happens. 1978, he graduates high school, and what do his parents do?
They divorce, and it's messy. They fight over custody of his younger brother, David. But Jeffrey, he's 18. He's an adult in the eyes of the law, so they basically leave him.
Can you imagine? The house is empty, the family structure, as broken as it was, is gone. He is completely alone in that house in the woods, a vacuum of supervision, a vacuum of connection.
It's the perfect storm. The dam breaks. It's the summer of 1978, June 18th, just 3 weeks after graduation.
This is the moment everything changes. He's driving down a rural road. He sees a hitchhiker, Stephen Mark Hicks, 18 years old, just a kid really, shirtless, summer heat, trying to get to a rock concert.
And Dahmer pulls over. Now, William, think about the interaction here. Dahmer didn't pull over and immediately attack him. He offered him a ride. He offered him a beer. He invited him back to the house. It was social.
It was the spider to the fly. He said later, "I had fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control." But here's the kicker. Stephen agreed. He had no reason to suspect this awkward, quiet guy was dangerous. They went back, they drank, they listened to music for hours.
That's the part that chills me. For hours, they were just two teenagers hanging out. It wasn't a frenzied attack. It was normal until it wasn't. Until Stephen said, "Okay, I gotta go. I have to get to this concert."
And that is the trigger, abandonment. His parents just left him. Now this new friend, this object of his desire, is leaving him too. He couldn't handle the separation. He said, "I don't know exactly why I hit him, except I wanted to stay with him longer."
I wanted to stay with him longer. That is so deeply sad and twisted. So he grabs a dumbbell.
He strikes him in the back of the head. Stephen slumps forward. And then Dahmer uses the handle of the dumbbell to strangle him. And just like that, the line is crossed. He has killed a human being.
And what happens next, William, this is where the first-time killer narrative falls apart for me. Usually, a first-time killer panics. They leave the body or they hide it clumsily. But Dahmer?
No panic. Or if there was, it was channeled into a terrifying efficiency. He drags the body to the basement. He dismembers it. And remember those chemicals we talked about? The roadkill?
He used them.
He used them. He dissolved the soft tissue in acid. He stripped the flesh. And then, this is the part that is just nightmare fuel. He took a sledgehammer to the bones. He pulverized them into dust and scattered them in the woods.
It's meticulous. It's professional. It suggests he had been thinking about to do this for a very, very long time.
He threw the knife and the necklace into the river. He erased Stephen Hicks completely.
And nobody noticed. That's the thing that gets me. He's 18 years old, living alone in a big house, and he just committed a perfect murder. Stephen is listed as a missing person. Dahmer's family comes back eventually, or checks in, and they notice nothing.
It's a terrifying validation for him. He learned that he could act on his darkest fantasies, and the world wouldn't stop him. The sky didn't fall, the police didn't come knocking. He got away with it.
But then he stops, or at least he stops killing. There's a gap. 9 years.
That cooling off period is incredibly long for a serial killer. Usually, once they start, the hunger accelerates. But Dahmer, his life was chaotic. He went to college, Ohio State.
Brief stint.
Very brief. He failed out after 1 semester. Why? The alcohol.
Always the alcohol. Lionel tries to help him. Get your life together, Jeff. So in January 1979, he enlists in the Army.
The Army. Now, can you imagine Jeffrey Dahmer as a medic? Because that's what he trained as. He was stationed in Baumholder, West Germany. And initially, he was okay, average soldier. But you can't run away from yourself, Sarah. You can cross the ocean, but you take your demons with you.
The drinking got worse. The barracks environment? I assume there was a lot of drinking culture there anyway, but Dahmer took it to another level. He was intoxicated on duty. Eventually, they discharged him.
An honorable discharge? Somehow, which is baffling. Unfit for service due to alcohol, but honorable. But here is the dark undercurrent of his Army time. He didn't kill, but there were accusations.
Billy Joe Capshaw and Preston Davis, 2 soldiers who later reported that Dahmer assaulted them.
Exactly. He was experimenting. He was drugging people. He was learning how to incapacitate men. He admitted later, there just wasn't the physical opportunity to kill then. But the urge, it was festering. It was growing.
It's like he was refining his technique. He figured out that murder was messy, but control was the drug. And if he couldn't kill them, he would drug them to make them compliant.
So he gets kicked out of the army, 1981. He drifts. He goes to Miami. He's homeless, sleeping on the beach. He's a mess. He calls his dad, "Help me."
And Lionel, being the father who is trying to fix this broken son, brings him back to Ohio. But Lionel has remarried now to Shari, and they really try to straighten him out. But then comes the arrest for drunk and disorderly conduct.
It's a cycle. Failure, alcohol, arrest, rescue. Failure, alcohol, arrest, rescue. So the family decides, okay, Ohio isn't working, Miami didn't work, the army didn't work. Let's send him to Grandma's.
Grandma Catherine Dahmer in West Allis, Wisconsin. This sweet, religious old lady. They thought maybe her influence will curb his behavior. Maybe he needs structure and Jesus.
And for a minute, just a minute, it seemed to work. He helped with chores, he went to church, he got a job. The Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
That name, Ambrosia Chocolate Factory, it sounds so whimsical. But knowing that he worked there while harboring these thoughts, and later while keeping trophies in his locker, it's grotesque.
It is. But the grandma cure didn't last, because Dahmer started hitting the Milwaukee gay bars, the bathhouses, and he started his pattern. He would spike drinks. He would drug men. He wouldn't kill them yet. He would just use them while they were unconscious.
He called it passive partners. He wanted them to be inanimate. He didn't want a lover, William. He wanted a doll.
Precisely. He was banned from bathhouses because he kept drugging people. He was arrested in 1986 for lewd behavior. He was testing the waters, pushing the boundaries, seeing what he could get away with.
And there was that incident in 1987, the fantasy about the funeral.
Oh God, yes. He told his probation officer this. He wanted to dig up a freshly buried body. He found an obituary for an 18-year-old boy. He went to the funeral. He planned to go back and dig him up.
Why didn't he?
The ground was too hard, and a dog chased him off.
A dog. Not a moral crisis, not a what am I doing moment, just the ground was hard and there was a dog.
That's the level of detachment we are dealing with. And because he couldn't get a dead body from the cemetery, he decided he had to make one.
And that brings us to November 1987, nearly a decade after Stephen Hicks. The dam breaks for the second time.
Stephen Tumomi, 24 years old. Dahmer meets him at a bar, convinces him to come back to the Ambassador Hotel.
This story is slightly different, though. Dahmer claimed he didn't intend to kill him.
That's his claim. He said he wanted to drug him, sleep with him, and then leave. He said he blacked out. When he woke up the next morning, Stephen was dead. Savage beating.
Do you believe him about the blackout?
I'm skeptical. I think it's convenient. Oh, the alcohol made me do it. But the brutality of the beating suggests a rage, a release of 10 years of pent-up violence. And whether he remembers it or not, the reaction was the same as with Hicks. No panic, just clean up.
He bought a suitcase, a massive suitcase.
He stuffed Stephen Tumomi's body into a suitcase, and he walked it right out of the hotel, through the lobby.
Can you imagine being in that elevator, standing next to a polite young man with a large suitcase, having no idea that there is a corpse inside?
It's the banality of evil, Sarah. He even got a taxi driver to help him load it. The driver complained about the smell, and Dahmer just stayed silent.
And he took him to Grandma's house.
To Grandma's basement. The sanctuary she tried to provide became his slaughterhouse. He dismembered him there, but this time he did something new.
The trophies.
He kept the head.
He kept the head in the freezer.
He wanted to keep a piece of him, to possess him permanently. But the preservation failed. The skull crumbled when he boiled it. He had to get rid of it.
So Stephen Tumomi became a ghost. No body ever found, no crime scene. For the longest time, the police didn't even know a murder had happened.
And that is the terrifying efficiency of Jeffrey Dahmer. He erased people. He turned them into memories and dust. And once he realized he could do it again, the floodgates were open.
It didn't take 9 years for the next one.
No, it took 2 months. January 1988, James Dox Tater, 14 years old.
A child. A runaway.
Dahmer preyed on the vulnerable. He offered him money, $50 for photos. It was a trap he would use again and again. He lured him to the basement, drugged him, strangled him.
And again, the disposal in the basement. Grandma's upstairs, cooking dinner, watching TV, and her grandson is downstairs, dissolving a teenager in acid.
It's unfathomable, but the smell started to become a problem. Grandma Catherine started complaining. Jeff, what is that smell? What are you doing down there?
And he always had an excuse. It's my taxidermy project, Grandma. It's chemicals from work. It's the sewage. He gaslit his own grandmother.
He did, but he was also getting reckless. Richard Guerrero, March 1988. Same MO. Gay bar, money offer, drugging, strangulation. But the smells were getting worse. He was hoarding body parts.
And yet, he almost got caught. Remember Ronald Flowers?
The one who got away. Thank God for Grandma.
She came down to the basement, didn't she?
She did. She saw Ronald Flowers there. He was groggy, but not dead. And because she saw him, Dahmer knew he couldn't kill him. He couldn't explain away a missing person that his grandmother had looked in the eye.
So he took him to the hospital.
He drove his victim to the hospital. It's bizarre behavior. It shows he was rational. He was calculating risk. He wasn't in a frenzy where he'd to kill. He chose to kill when he thought he could get away with it.
But the clock was ticking at Grandma's house. The smells, the weird hours, the men coming over. She finally kicked him out, September 1988.
And this should have been the end of it. He was moving out. He was arrested again for assaulting a minor, the Somsock case. He was in the legal system.
But the system failed. He got a slap on the wrist, work release, probation. They let a predator walk right back out onto the street.
And he had his own apartment now. No grandma to check on him, no parents, just Jeffrey Dahmer, a lock on the door, and a growing hunger.
And that is where the true horror story begins, when he gets the keys to apartment 213.
The Oxford Apartments, a place that would become synonymous with death. But before we open that door, we have to look at what he brought with him, because he didn't go there alone, did he?
No, he brought the box.
The mummified head and genitals of Anthony Sears.
He kept them in his locker at work, at the chocolate factory.
Imagine that. You're working next to a guy, mixing chocolate, and 3 feet away in a metal locker is a human head. It creates this duality, the quiet coworker and the monster.
And when he moved into apartment 213, he put that head in his new refrigerator. It was the first piece of his shrine.
A shrine to death, a shrine to control. And Sarah, what happened inside those walls, what he did to the next 12 victims, it pushes the boundaries of human comprehension.
It really does. It becomes a factory of death.
It does, and I think we need to take a breath before we step inside apartment 213.
I think you're right. The darkness gets much deeper from here.
It sure does. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many people walked past that apartment door, smelled something strange, and just kept walking?
It haunts me.
Us too.
But we have so much more to uncover. The experiments, the neighbors, the police officers who handed a victim back to him.
That is a story that will break your heart. But we have to tell it. We have to witness it.
We do. Well, looking at the timeline, we are just standing on the precipice of the 1991 Summer of Horror.
We are, and I think the listeners need to prepare themselves for what's coming next.
Absolutely. It's not going to be easy to hear, but it's the truth, and we owe it to the victims to hear it.
You know, William, looking back at that photo of him, he looks so normal, just a guy with glasses.
That's the scariest part, Sarah. Monsters don't have claws and fangs. They have neighbors, and jobs, and secrets.
And that is exactly where the mask slips, doesn't it? Because in May of 1990, he moves into the place that would become synonymous with his name, the Oxford Apartments, apartment 213.
Apartment 213. Just saying that number, it carries a weight. It's infamous. But Sarah, on paper, it looked like a fresh start. He's out of jail, he's on probation, he's working at the chocolate factory. If you were his probation officer, you'd look at this and think, okay, he's getting his life back on track.
Right, he's independent. No grandma watching over him, no parents fighting in the next room. just silence. And I think that silence is exactly what he needed to let the monster fully off the leash. Because inside that apartment, William, he wasn't just living, he was building something.
He was building a factory. That's the only way to describe it. A factory of death. You know, when we talk about serial killers, we usually picture a dungeon or a basement, but this was a one-bedroom apartment in a busy building. And yet, he created this ecosystem of horror right under everyone's noses.
It's the details of the apartment that get to me. The specific items he brought in. A 57-gallon blue drum.
Which he used for acid.
Exactly. A freezer. A refrigerator stocked with, well, things no refrigerator should ever hold. And drawers. Drawers filled with skulls that he had cleaned and painted.
It's the domesticity of it that's so jarring. He's living among the dead. He's sleeping next to them. And the neighbors, Sarah, can you imagine living next door to that? The smell alone.
That's the thing that always comes up in this case, the smell. People were complaining constantly. It seeped through the vents, it was in the hallways, and he always had an excuse, didn't he?
Always. My freezer broke. I bought too much meat and it spoiled. The plumbing is backed up. He was a master of the mundane excuse. And because he was this quiet, polite guy with glasses, people bought it. Or maybe they just didn't want to know.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. We don't want to believe that the smell coming from next door is human. Our brains just don't go there.
Exactly. It's a defense mechanism. But once that door was locked, May 20th, 1990, that's when Raymond Smith walks in. He was 32 years old.
Raymond, also known as Ricky Beeks to his friends.
Right, and he's the first one to die in apartment 213. Dahmer offers him $50, the usual lure. Come take some pictures, have a drink. And Raymond, maybe he's down on his luck, maybe he just trusts this unassuming guy, he goes.
And once he's in there, the routine it's mechanical at this point, William. It's like he's running a script. The drink, the sedatives, the strangulation.
But the aftermath, that's where the escalation happens. This is where we see the transition from just killing to total erasure. He didn't just want them dead, he wanted to reduce them to nothing. He starts using chemicals, Soilex and bleach.
God, Soilex. That's an industrial cleaner, isn't it?
It is. It's caustic. He boiled Raymond's slush in a solution of Soilex and bleach to create this sludge, something he could flush down the toilet. I mean, think about the level of detachment required to do that. You're not dealing with a person anymore. You're dealing with biological waste.
And yet, he kept the skull.
He kept the skull.
It's this paradox that I can't wrap my head around. On one hand, he wants to destroy the evidence, melt it down to nothing so he doesn't get caught. But on the other hand, he has this desperate need to keep them, to keep the skull in a drawer. It's like he's building a collection of friends who can never leave him.
That's it precisely. It's about possession. He said it himself later. He wanted to keep them with him. But Raymond was just the beginning of this new phase. A few weeks later, in June, he tries something else. Something arguably even more disturbing, if that's possible.
Edward Smith, the Sheik.
Yeah, Edward Smith, 27 years old. Friendly guy, wore a bandana like a turban. And with Edward, Dahmer tries an experiment. He doesn't dismember him immediately. He puts the entire body in the freezer.
He tried to freeze him solid.
He wanted to preserve him. He wanted a statue, essentially, a permanent, unchanging companion. But he didn't understand the biology of it. When he thawed the body out months later,
The freezer burn.
The tissue was ruined. It was dried out, leathery. It wasn't the pristine preservation he fantasized about. And his reaction to that failure wasn't horror, it was frustration.
Frustration that his toy broke. That's how he saw them.
Exactly. And because the preservation failed, he had to get rid of the remains. And this detail, Sarah, this is one of the ones that keeps me up at night. He tried to dry the skeleton in the oven.
Oh, God, no.
He put the bones in the oven. But because of the heat or moisture trapped inside the marrow, the bones exploded.
They exploded?
Like gunshots going off in the kitchen. Can you imagine? You're in this apartment building surrounded by neighbors, and your oven is literally exploding with human remains. The panic he must have felt, not moral panic, but just the fear of being found out.
And the smell, cooking bones, that has to be distinct.
It has to be, but again, oh, I'm cooking a roast. Oh, the oven malfunctioned. He spun it, and the world kept turning. Edward Smith simply vanished. His family got a prank call later saying, "Don't bother looking, he's dead."
That is just cruel. Beyond cruel. It's taunting.
It is, and it just emboldened him. By September, we hit another turning point. Ernest Miller.
Ernest, he was so young. 22, a dancer.
A dancer? He had a future. He was just visiting from Chicago. And with Ernest, the ritual fails slightly. The drugs, they didn't knock him out completely.
Right, because he ran out of pills, didn't he? He miscalculated.
He did. He gave him a dilute mixture, and Ernest starts to get groggy, but he's not out. And Dahmer tries to make a move, and Ernest says something like, "That'll cost you extra." And that rejection, or maybe just the complication of it, Dahmer panics. He grabs a knife.
Which he never did. He hated blood, usually. He didn't like the mess.
He hated the mess, and he hated the violence of the act. He wanted them to just go to sleep. But here, he slashes Ernest's throat. It's brutal, it's bloody, and it's intimate in a way strangulation isn't. And after Ernest is dead, Sarah, this is where the cannibalism becomes systematic.
I know. I was reading the file and I had to put it down for a second. He didn't just keep parts for the shrine. He started eating them.
He took the biceps, he took the heart.
The heart.
He cooked them, he seasoned them, he ate them. And later, when he confessed, he said it gave him a sense of permanent ownership. If I eat them, they become part of me.
It's the ultimate narcissism. It's believing that you have the right to consume another human being's existence just to fill your own emptiness.
It is spiritual consumption in his mind. He's trying to fill a void that cannot be filled. And he said the meat tasted like beef, just matter of fact.
It makes me sick. It physically makes me sick to think about it. And Ernest's poor grandmother, she got a call too, didn't she?
She did, a voice crying, "Help, help." Probably not Ernest, but just the psychological torture inflicted on these families. They didn't know. They just knew their boy was gone.
And meanwhile, Dahmer is just existing. He's going to work, he's showing up at the chocolate factory. Can you imagine working next to him, standing on the assembly line, maybe sharing a lunch break, and he's just eaten a human heart the night before?
It's terrifying. It challenges everything we think we know about human nature. We want monsters to look like monsters. We want them to have shaking hands or crazy eyes. But he was just Jeff, the quiet guy who missed a few shifts.
And he was missing shifts because he was busy killing. The acceleration in 1990 and 91, it's dizzying.
It is. It's a frenzy. September 24th, 1990. David Thomas.
This one is tragic for a different reason. Dahmer wasn't even attracted to him.
No, he lured him back, drugged him, and then realized, I don't actually want this. But David Thomas was unconscious on his floor. He was a liability, so Dahmer kills him purely for self-preservation. It wasn't lust, it wasn't the shrine, it was just cleaning up a loose end.
He strangled a father of a 2-year-old girl just because it was convenient.
Where is Dada? That's what his daughter asked.
Stop. That breaks my heart.
I know, it's gut-wrenching. But we have to remember these victims were people. They weren't just props in Dahmer's story. David Thomas was a father. He mattered. And he was erased because Dahmer made a calculation.
And then we move into 1991. And this is where, God, William, this is where the science fiction horror aspect kicks in. The experiments.
The zombies.
The zombies. He wasn't satisfied with dead bodies anymore. He wasn't satisfied with skulls. He wanted something living, but not there.
He wanted a compliant, breathing automaton, someone who would never leave, never judge, never speak, but would still be warm. So he starts experimenting.
Curtis Straughter, February 1991. He was only 17.
Just a kid, a nursing aide. He strangled Curtis. But with the next victim, Errol Lindsay, that's when he picks up the drill.
I can't believe we're talking about this. A drill into a living person's skull?
Errol Lindsay, 19 years old, a mama's boy, loved telling jokes. He goes to get a key cut and never comes home. He ends up in apartment 213. He's drugged, and while he's sedated, Dahmer drills a hole into his cranium, and then he injects hydrochloric acid directly into the brain.
Why? Just why?
He thought he could chemically lobotomize him. He thought if he destroyed the frontal lobe, he would strip away the personality, the will, and leave just a body, a living doll.
But it didn't work like that. Biology doesn't work like that.
No. Errol woke up.
Oh my God.
He woke up with a hole in his head and acid in his brain, and he looked at Dahmer and said, "I have a headache. What time is it?"
No.
Yes. Can you imagine the resilience of the human body, the sheer will to survive? He wakes up. And Dahmer, he's shocked. He's astonished that Errol is talking, so he gives him more sedatives, and then he strangles him.
It's torture. It's medical torture.
It is. And after Errol died, Dahmer tried something else. He tried to flay the skin. He wanted to preserve the skin, maybe to keep it supple.
Like a suit? Like Ed Gein?
Similar impulses, I think. But the preservation failed again. The smell became too much, and he had to dispose of it. But Errol's death, it marks the point of no return. Dahmer isn't just a killer anymore. He's a mad scientist operating in a low-rent apartment.
And Errol's family, his sister, Rita Isbell, we'll talk about her later at the trial. But the fire in that family, they knew something was wrong immediately. They knew Errol wouldn't just disappear.
They did, but nobody listened. And that's the recurring theme here, Sarah. Nobody listened. Not to the families, not to the neighbors, not to the victims.
It makes you wonder how many people had to die just because society decided they didn't matter enough to look for.
That's the hard truth of it. These were young men, many of them gay, many of them people of color, in a city that, frankly, didn't prioritize them. And Dahmer knew that. He was a predator, and predators know which herds are left unguarded.
You know, looking at the timeline, we are approaching May 1991. Tony Hughes.
Tony Hughes and Konarak.
I don't know if I'm ready for this part, William.
I don't think anyone is ever ready for this part, but this is the crescendo. This is where the negligence becomes criminal.
Tony was different. He was deaf.
He was deaf and mute. He communicated with notes. He was 31, handsome, had a great smile. He met Dahmer at a club, May 24th. And because he couldn't hear the locks clicking. He couldn't hear if there were any noises in that apartment. He was completely vulnerable in a way the others weren't.
And Dahmer, he saw that vulnerability as an opportunity.
He did. He took Tony back, he drugged him, and he tried the drill again.
He did it to Tony too?
He did. But this time, the injection was fatal. Tony didn't wake up. He died on the floor. And for some reason, Dahmer didn't dispose of the body immediately.
He left him there?
He left him on the bedroom floor for days.
Just laying there while he watched TV, while he ate?
While he slept, while he planned, and while Tony's body was laying on that bedroom floor, Dahmer got restless. It was May 26th. He decides he needs another one.
No, he has a body in the bedroom and he goes out for another one?
The compulsion was spiraling out of control. He couldn't stop. So he leaves Tony dead in the bedroom and goes out to the streets. And he finds a 14-year-old boy.
Konarak.
Konarak Synthesymphone. And Sarah, the last name.
I recognize it. We talked about his brother earlier.
Exactly, Samsak, the boy Dahmer had assaulted years before. The crime he actually went to jail for. This was Samsak's little brother.
What are the odds? That feels like fate. Cruel, twisted fate.
The universe playing a sick joke. This family, refugees from Laos, trying to build a life. One son is traumatized by this man, and then years later, the younger son walks right into the same spiderweb.
14 years old. He's a baby.
A baby. Dahmer lures him back, offers him money for photos, takes him to the apartment 213, where Tony Hughes is lying dead in the next room.
The smell must have been
Overpowering. But Konarak, he takes the drink, he passes out, and Dahmer does the drill again.
Oh God.
He drills into this 14-year-old skull, injects the acid. He's trying to make the zombie. But then Dahmer gets hungry or thirsty. He decides to leave the apartment to go to a bar.
He leaves the kid there, alone?
He leaves Konarak alone, unconscious, bleeding from the head, with a corpse in the other womb.
That is the most reckless thing I have ever heard.
It's arrogance, or maybe he just didn't care anymore. But while he's gone, Konarak wakes up.
He wakes up.
The acid, it damaged him, obviously. He was disoriented, he couldn't speak properly, he was stumbling. But the survival instinct kicked in. He managed to get up. He managed to open the door.
Come on, Konarak.
He stumbles out into the alley, naked, bleeding, terrified, and 3 women see him. Sandra Smith, Tina Spivey, Nicole Childress, neighbors.
Thank God for neighbors. Finally, someone sees something.
They see this child, and they knew he was a child, Sarah. They said he looked no older than 14 or 15. He's naked, he's hurt. They call 911. They are doing everything right.
But this is the story of missed warnings, isn't it?
It is, because just as they are trying to help this boy, Jeffrey Dahmer comes back.
No.
He walks up, calm as can be, and he tells them, "Oh, this is my friend. He's drunk. We had a little lover's quarrel."
A lover's quarrel?
With a naked, bleeding child? And the women aren't buying it. They are screaming, "He's a kid. Look at him. He's hurt." But then the police arrive. Officers Balcerzak and Gabresh.
I know these names. Everyone who knows this case knows these names.
And this, Sarah, this is the moment where humanity failed. The officers look at this scene. You have 3 black women screaming that this boy is in danger. You have a white man, calm, polite, saying it's just a domestic dispute. And who do they listen to?
They listen to the white man.
They listen to Dahmer. He tells them Konarak is 19. He shows them a Polaroid of Konarak in his underwear as proof that they are in a relationship.
And that was enough? A picture? They didn't check ID? They didn't ask the boy?
The boy couldn't speak. He was lobotomized, Sarah. He was groaning. He was slumping over. And the officers, they interpreted that as him being drunk.
He had a hole in his head. Was he bleeding?
He was, but they didn't check closely. They just wanted to clear the call. And then they did the unthinkable.
They didn't.
They didn't. They walked Konarak back into the apartment.
They walked him back inside? To the slaughterhouse?
They escorted the victim back to the killer. They walked into apartment 213. They smelled the smell.
They smelled the dead body in the other room?
They noted a foul odor. Dahmer said, broken freezer, and they bought it. They looked around, they saw the strange setup, but they didn't look in the bedroom. If they had opened that bedroom door, they would have seen Tony Hughes.
Oh my God. If they had just turned the knob?
If they had turned the knob, it would have been over. Konarak would be alive, Tony would be found, the next victims would be saved. But they didn't. They scolded the women for interfering. They made jokes, homophobic jokes, about reuniting a lover's spat. And they left.
They left him there.
They left him there. And as soon as the door closed,
I can't.
Dahmer injected more acid and Konarak died.
That is heavy. That is the heaviest thing we've ever discussed on the show. It's not just murder, William. It's betrayal. It's a betrayal by the people who are sworn to protect you.
It haunts me. Every time I read the transcripts of that night, the neighbors did their job. Konarak did the impossible. He escaped a serial killer's lair with a drilled skull. He did everything right. And the system threw him back in.
It makes you wonder, what is a monster? Is it just the man with the drill, or is it the indifference that lets him operate?
That's the question, isn't it? Monsters need shadows to hide in. And that night, the police provided the shade.
And after that, he didn't stop. You'd think a close call like that would scare him straight, make him pack up and run.
No, it emboldened him. He realized he was invisible. He realized that even with the police standing in his living room, surrounded by death, he could talk his way out of it. He felt invincible.
So the spree continued.
It accelerated. June, July. He was killing almost every week. Matt Turner, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, Joseph Bredehoft.
Jeremiah, he was from Chicago too, right?
Yeah,
And with Jeremiah, Dahmer tried the boiling water experiment instead of acid.
Boiling water into the brain?
It put him in a coma. He was alive for days, Sarah, just lying there. It's a house of horrors. The acid drum was getting full. The freezer was full. He was running out of space to put them.
He was spiraling. His life was falling apart, wasn't it? He lost his job.
He got fired from the chocolate factory. He was facing eviction. He was running out of money. The walls were literally closing in. But the compulsion to kill, to possess, it was the only thing that mattered.
And Joseph Bredehoft, the last victim, July 19th.
A father of 3, just looking for work. Dahmer kills him, leaves him on the bed. And 2 days later, July 22nd, he goes out again.
He just couldn't stop. It's like a shark that has to keep moving or it dies.
He goes to the Grand Avenue Mall, and he sees a man named Tracy Edwards.
Tracy, the man who lived?
The man who changed everything. Tracy was smart. He was streetwise. Dahmer gives him the pitch. $100, photos, come back to my place. Tracy agrees. But from the moment he walks into apartment 213, he knows.
The smell.
The smell hit him like a wall. And the boxes of acid standing in the open. The blue drum. Tracy asked, "What's that?" And Dahmer said, "Cleaning supplies." But the vibe, the air was thick with it.
And then the handcuffs came out.
Look at my fish. That was the distraction. Look at the aquarium. And snap, one cuff on.
But not the second one.
No, Tracy resisted. He kept his arm stiff. He didn't let that second cuff click. And that small act of resistance, that saved his life. Dahmer pulls a knife. He forces him into the bedroom.
Where he's playing that movie.
Why that movie? He obsessed over it. There's a scene involving decapitation. He watched it to get into the mood. He told Tracy, "I'm going to eat your heart."
He said that to his face?
To his face, while rocking back and forth, chanting. Imagine the terror. You're handcuffed. This guy is chanting about eating your heart. A horror movie is playing.
But Tracy didn't panic. Or he did, but he controlled it.
He played along. He's a hero in my book. He realized that fighting physically might get him killed right there. So he de-escalated. He said, "Hey, let's be friends. Let's go have a beer. I'm cool. You're cool."
He talked the monster down.
He did. He convinced Dahmer to go back to the living room. And he waited. He waited for that split second where Dahmer's eyes glazed over, where the focus drifted.
And then he ran.
He punched him, and he ran. He burst out of that apartment, down the stairs, into the street, with the handcuffs still dangling from his wrist.
And he flags down a police car.
Officers Routh and Mueller, and unlike the last time, these officers listened.
Thank God.
Tracy leads them back. They go up the stairs. They knock on 213. Dahmer opens the door, and he's calm. He's trying the same act. Oh, the key is just in the bedroom.
But the officer follows him this time.
Officer Mueller follows him. Dahmer tries to block the drawer, but Mueller opens it.
And that's the moment the world changed.
Polaroids, dozens of them, bodies, heads, dissections. Mueller holds them up and says, "These are real."
And the mask falls.
Dahmer fights. He lunges, but they tackle him. It's over.
But when they started looking around that apartment, William, the inventory list, it reads like something out of hell.
2 human hearts in the fridge, a torso in the freezer, the blue drum full of acid and sludge. 7 skulls.
7 skulls.
Painted, bleached, sitting on shelves. It was a museum of death. And in the middle of it all, Jeffrey Dahmer, just standing there. And you know what he said?
What?
"For what I did, I should be dead."
He knew.
He knew. The game was up. 17 victims, 13 years, and it all came crashing down because one man kept his wits about him and refused to be number 18.
It really makes you think about the fragility of it all. If Tracy hadn't run, if those officers hadn't looked in the drawer, how long would it have gone on?
Indefinitely. He would have filled that apartment until it burst.
So they have him. He's in cuffs, the house of horrors is exposed, but now comes the question everyone was asking. Why? And how do you even begin to prosecute a nightmare?
That is the question. The confession, Sarah, the confession is 60 hours long. He remembers everything, every name, every act. And that journey into his mind,
that's where the real darkness lies. Because he wasn't crazy, not legally,
He was just evil.
or broken, or both. We're going to dive deep into that trial, the confession, and the psychology in the next part. But for now, just sit with the image of that apartment, the mundane door, the number 213, and the horrors that lay just on the other side of the drywall.
It's a lot to process.
It is. Take a breath, everyone. We're through the worst of the actions, but the aftermath? The aftermath is a storm of its own.
Yeah, we'll get there. Just keep the light on tonight, guys.
Absolutely. We're not done yet.
It really is. And William, before we even get to the police failure, which I know we have to talk about, and it's going to make my blood boil, I need to understand the environment. We're talking about apartment 213.
Right. 924 North 25th Street.
It's painted as this almost mundane backdrop, a one-bedroom unit, dirt cheap rent. But the source document mentions something that chills me to the bone. It says he built a private ecosystem of horror.
That's the perfect phrase for it, an ecosystem. Because it wasn't just a killing ground, it was a living, breathing factory of death. You have to picture this, Sarah. It's May 1990. He's just out of jail for the previous assault, he's on probation, he's working at the chocolate factory. On paper, he looks like a guy trying to get his life back together.
But inside?
Inside, he's creating a world where he has total dominion. He brings in that infamous 57-gallon blue drum, he stocks the freezer, and this is where the ritual changes. Before, with Hicks and the earlier victims, it was messy, it was reactive. Now, it's industrial.
And the smell, William. The neighbors were complaining constantly.
They were, and this is where his nice guy mask really did the heavy lifting. He'd tell them it was a broken freezer, or spoiled meat, or backed up plumbing. And because he was quiet, because he was polite, people bought it.
It's the banality of evil.
Exactly, and inside that apartment, the timeline just accelerates. He kills Raymond Lamont Smith in May of 1990, then Edward Warren Smith in June. And with Edward, we see the first real sign that killing wasn't enough.
This is where he tried to freeze him?
Yes, he put the entire body in a chest freezer. He wanted to see if he could keep him pristine.
Oh, God.
He didn't want them to rot. He wanted them to stay exactly as they were in that moment of death. But the physics of it didn't work. The freezer burn ruined the tissue. And when he realized he couldn't keep Edward perfect, he destroyed him. He even tried to dry the skeleton in the oven, Sarah.
No.
The bones exploded from the heat. It's gruesome, I know, but it shows you his mindset. He was experimenting. He was trying to find a way to make these people permanent fixtures in his life.
It's heartbreaking because these were real people with families. Edward Smith was known as the Sheik because he wore that turban-style bandana. He was friendly, and then his family gets a prank call later saying, "Don't look for him, he's dead."
Cruelty on top of cruelty. And then, by September 1990, with Ernest Miller, the escalation takes another dark turn. This is where the cannibalism starts.
I read that part. He ate parts of him.
Biceps, the heart. He fried them in a skillet. And when he was asked why, do you remember what he said?
He said he wanted them to be a part of him, a permanent part.
Right. It wasn't hunger. It wasn't culinary. It was possession. If he consumed them, they could never leave him. It's this pathological fear of abandonment twisted into the most horrific shape imaginable. He's literally internalizing his victims so he never has to be alone.
It's so sad in a twisted way. I mean, obviously, he's a monster. But that level of loneliness, to think that eating another human being is the only way to feel connected, it's just broken.
It is, and that desire for connection, or rather control, is what led to the zombie experiments. And this, Sarah, this is the part that keeps me up at night.
You're talking about Errol Lindsay.
Errol Lindsay and later Tony Hughes and Konarak. See, strangling them meant they were dead. They couldn't leave, sure, but they also couldn't interact. Dahmer wanted a middle ground. He wanted someone who was alive, but absent.
A breathing doll.
Precisely. Somatic compliance without the person inside. With Errol Lindsay, a 19-year-old kid, a mama's boy by all accounts, Dahmer drilled a hole into his skull while he was sedated but alive, and he injected hydrochloric acid directly into the brain.
I can't. William, I can't imagine the pain or the horror of waking up, because Errol did wake up, didn't he?
He did. He woke up saying his head hurt. The experiment failed, and so Dahmer killed him. But the intent was to chemically lobotomize him, to wipe away the Errol part and just keep the body.
It makes me think of that poor mother, Mildred. She said he wouldn't even go out without telling her, and he just vanished into that apartment.
And then we have Tony Hughes, May 1991.
This one hit me hard. Tony was deaf.
He was. And there's been a lot of, let's call it, creative liberty taken with Tony's story in the media recently.
Oh, don't get me started. The dramatization's trying to make it look like they had a relationship, like a romance.
It's insulting.
It really is. The source text is very clear on this. They met that night. Tony went home with him that night. There was no courting phase. Dahmer saw a vulnerable man, a man who couldn't hear him lock the door, couldn't hear the danger, and he preyed on him.
Exactly. It wasn't a tragic love story. It was a predator spotting an easy target. He tried the drilling technique on Tony, too, and when it killed him, Dahmer just left him on the bedroom floor for days.
Which brings us to arguably the most infuriating, heartbreaking moment of this entire timeline, the night of May 26th.
The Konarak synthesomphone incident.
I need to take a deep breath before we dive into this, because if there was ever a moment where the universe handed law enforcement a chance to stop a monster, this was it.
It was on a silver platter, Sarah. Konarak was 14. 14. He was the younger brother of the boy Dahmer had assaulted years prior, the very crime he had gone to jail for.
The irony is sickening.
So Konarak is in the apartment. Dahmer tries the acid injection, but he leaves to get more alcohol, and Konarak, this kid is a fighter. He wakes up.
With a hole in his head.
With a hole in his head, drugged, naked, bleeding, and he stumbles out into the alley. It's 2 a.m., and 3 women, Sandra Smith, Tina Spivey, Nicole Childress, they find him, and they do the right thing. They call 911.
They were heroes. They saw a child in distress. They saw he was naked and bleeding.
But then, officers Balcerzak and Gabrish arrive, and Dahmer comes back.
And this is where the system fails. Dahmer is calm, he's white, he's polite, he's soft-spoken, and he spins this story that Konarak is his 19-year-old boyfriend, and they're just having a lover's spat.
And the officers bought it, despite the women screaming that he's a child, despite the boy being unable to speak because of the acid in his brain. They looked at a naked, bleeding 14-year-old Asian boy and a white man in his 30s, and they decided this is a domestic issue. We don't want to get involved.
They walked him back inside, William. They walked the victim back into the killer's apartment.
They did. And not only that, they went inside. They smelled the smell. Tony Hughes's body was lying in the bedroom, just a few feet away.
Oh my God.
If they had just looked in the bedroom, if they had just run Dahmer's name, they would have seen he was a registered sex offender on probation for assaulting a minor.
But they didn't. They laughed about it. The source says they were making jokes on the radio about reuniting lovers.
It's racism, it's homophobia, it's sheer laziness. Call it what you want, but it was a death sentence for Konarak. As soon as the door closed, Dahmer injected him again, and he killed him.
And he went on to kill 4 more people after that.
That's the tragedy. Matt Turner, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, Joseph Bredehoft. They all died because those officers didn't do their job that night. Dahmer even said later he couldn't believe his luck. It emboldened him. He thought he was invincible.
It launched the summer of death.
It did. July 1991. He was spiraling. He lost his job at the chocolate factory. He was about to be evicted. He was killing almost weekly at this point.
He was out of control. The cooling off period was gone.
Completely gone. He wasn't even disposing of the bodies properly anymore because he couldn't keep up. The apartment was filled with, well, everything. The barrel was full, the freezer was full.
It was a ticking time bomb.
And on July 22nd, 1991, the bomb finally went off.
He goes out to the mall hunting again, and he finds Tracy Edwards.
Tracy Edwards, the man who lived.
Tracy was 32, smart, streetwise. Dahmer lured him back with the usual offer: money, photos, drinks. But as soon as Tracy walked into apartment 213, he knew.
The smell.
The smell hit him like a wall. And the boxes of acid were just sitting out in the open. Can you imagine the adrenaline spike? Walking into a stranger's apartment and seeing industrial chemicals just sitting in the living room?
And then the handcuffs come out.
Dahmer gets one cuff on him. He tries to force him into the bedroom, and this is where Tracy sees it. The blue drum. The movie playing on the TV.
Which Dahmer watched obsessively.
He said it helped him get in the mood. He was chanting, Sarah, rocking back and forth, saying, "I'm going to eat your heart."
That is pure nightmare fuel.
It is. But Tracy kept his head. This is what's so incredible. He didn't panic. He realized that if he fought, he'd die. So he talked to him. He validated him. He said, "Hey, let's just go to the living room. Let's have a beer. We're cool."
He played along to save his life.
He de-escalated a serial killer. He got Dahmer to lower his guard just for a second. And when Dahmer looked away, Tracy punched him.
Yes!
He punched him and he ran. He burst out of that apartment with the handcuffs still dangling from his wrist. He flagged down a patrol car, Officers Roth and Mueller. And thank God, this time the officers listened.
They went back to the apartment.
They did. Tracy led them right back to door 213. They went inside to get the key for the handcuffs. Dahmer is there, trying to act calm, trying to block them from the bedroom, but one of the officers opens the bedside drawer looking for the key.
And he didn't find a key.
No, he found the polaroids.
The trophies.
Dozens of them. Pictures of bodies, pictures of heads. The officer picked them up, looked at his partner, and said, "These are real." And in that second, the mask fell off. Dahmer fought, but they pinned him. And that was it. The reign of terror was over.
But the discovery, William, what they found when they actually started searching that apartment?
It's indescribable. When the crime scene unit came in, they found a literal house of horrors. 7 skulls, some painted, some bleached, 2 human hearts in the fridge, a torso in the freezer. That blue drum, it was full of acid and decomposing remains.
It makes you realize how close we were to this just going on forever. If Tracy hadn't escaped...
If Tracy hadn't escaped, Joseph Bredehoft wouldn't have been the last. There would have been more.
And Dahmer, he didn't even lawyer up, did he?
No, that's the strange part. Once the cuffs were on, once the pictures were found, he just folded. He sat in that interrogation room with Detective Kennedy, and he just talked.
For 60 hours.
60 hours. He gave them everything. Every name, every date. He detailed the drilling, the cooking, the collecting. He didn't hide behind "I don't remember." He remembered all of it.
Why do you think that is? Was it guilt, or was he just done?
I think he was exhausted. He said it himself. "I created this horror, and it only makes sense I do everything to put an end to it." He claimed he didn't hate his victims. He claimed he wanted to possess them.
I tried and failed and created a Holocaust? That's what he said later.
It is, but saying sorry doesn't bring back 17 lives. And as the police are pulling these bodies out of the apartment, outside, the crowd is gathering, the families are gathering, and the reality of what happened in that building is starting to ripple out into Milwaukee.
And the questions start. How did nobody know? How did the smell not give it away?
And that brings us to the trial. Because how do you defend this? How do you stand in a courtroom and argue for the life of a man who drilled holes in children's heads?
He pleaded guilty, but insane.
Right. He didn't deny doing it. He just said, "I couldn't help it. I was sick." And that became the battleground. Was he a monster or was he mad?
It's a terrifying question, because if he's sane, what does that say about human nature?
Exactly. And the things that came out in that courtroom, the testimony, the victim impact statements. I mean, we've all seen the footage of Rita Isbell, Errol Lindsay's sister.
Her rage was palpable. It was righteous.
It was the only sane reaction in the room. screaming at the man who destroyed her family. And Dahmer, he just sat there, stone-faced, unreadable.
It chills me. Just thinking about him sitting there, listening to the devastation he caused and showing nothing.
Well, Sarah, we're about to step into that courtroom. We're going to dissect the trial, the verdict, and the very strange, very violent end of Jeffrey Dahmer's life in prison. Because the story doesn't end with the handcuffs. In some ways, the punishment was just beginning.
I don't know if I'm ready for the rest, but we owe it to the victims to see it through.
We do. And trust me, the psychology of his time in prison, the baptism, the brain controversy, it gets even more bizarre.
All right, I'm steeling myself.
Good, because we're going to need it. The darkness of apartment 213 has been exposed, but the darkness of the human mind, that's a deeper well.
Let's keep going.
Let's do it. So the trial begins in January 1992.
Wait, William, before we even get to the gavel banging down, I think we need to pause. We can't just skip to the legal arguments without understanding exactly what the jury was hearing, because the escalation, what happened inside apartment 213 in those final months, that is where the true horror lives.
You're right, Sarah. It's the descent into madness. To understand the trial, we have to look at the zombie experiments.
God, even the name, zombie experiments. It sounds like bad fiction, but this was real life. This was Errol Lindsay.
Exactly. Errol Lindsay. He was the 11th victim, only 19 years old. And this is where the motive shifts, Sarah. Up until now, it was about control, yes, but it was necrophilic. It was about possession after death. With Lindsay, Dahmer wanted something else. He wanted a compliant living partner, a slave.
He wanted someone who wouldn't leave, but who also wouldn't be dead. Not yet.
Precisely. It's gruesome, but we have to detail it. He drugged Lindsay, as usual, but while the boy was sedated, Dahmer took an electric drill.
Oh my God.
He drilled a hole into Errol's skull, and then he injected a hydrochloric acid solution directly into the frontal lobe of his brain.
William, I can't wrap my head around the cruelty. He was trying to chemically lobotomize him?
That was the goal. He thought if he could destroy just the right part of the brain, the person would stay alive but lose their will. They would become a zombie who would just exist for him. But with Lindsay, it didn't work the way he fantasized. The text says Lindsay actually woke up.
He woke up? After acid was injected into his brain?
He woke up complaining of a headache, asking what time it was. Can you imagine the sheer resilience of the human body? But for Dahmer, that was a failure, so he ended it. He strangled him.
And then he kept his skin.
Yeah, he filleted the body. He soaked the skin in saline, hoping to preserve it, maybe to wear it or just look at it. It rotted, of course, and he had to throw it away. But the psychological threshold he crossed there, it's unrecoverable.
It brings up Tony Hughes, too, victim number 12. And this one breaks my heart in a different way, William, because Tony was deaf.
Tony Hughes, yeah, that chapter it's heavy. 31 years old. By all accounts, a sweet, outgoing guy. He meets Dahmer at a club. They communicate through written notes.
Think about the vulnerability there. Dahmer lures him back, and Tony can't hear the door lock. He can't hear if there are noises from the bedroom, or if there's a struggle, or anything. He's completely reliant on visual cues.
And Dahmer exploited that trust completely. He tried the drilling technique on Tony too, but it killed him. And then, for some reason, he just left Tony's body on the floor for days.
That's the part that leads to the most infuriating, heartbreaking moment of this entire case, the Konarak synthesomphone incident.
The police failure. We have to talk about it, because this isn't just about a serial killer anymore. This is about systemic negligence.
It makes me sick. It physically makes me sick to think about. Konarak was 14, William. 14.
And the brother of a boy Dahmer had assaulted years prior. The odds of that are astronomical.
So Dahmer goes out looking for another victim while Tony Hughes is literally lying dead in his bedroom. He finds Konarak, lures him back, does the drill and acid injection, but then he leaves to get alcohol.
And Konarak wakes up.
He wakes up,
He's got a hole in his head, acid in his brain, he's naked, bleeding, stumbling out onto the street at 2 a.m. 3 women find him: Sandra Smith, Tina Spivey, Nicole Childress. They see this child, and they knew he was a child, Sarah, stumbling around, unable to speak. They call 911.
They did everything right. They called for help, they stood by him, and then the police arrive. Officers Balcerzak and Gabrish.
And Dahmer comes back, cool as a cucumber. He strolls up and tells the officers, "Oh, this is my 19-year-old boyfriend. He's just drunk. We had a lover's quarrel."
And the police believed the killer over the 3 women screaming that this was a child.
They looked at a 14-year-old immigrant boy bleeding from the head, naked, and they bought the story that he was a drunk adult. Dahmer even showed them Polaroids of Konarak in his underwear as proof of their relationship.
Which should have been proof of pedophilia. Why didn't they check his ID? Why didn't they run Dahmer's name? He was a registered sex offender.
That's the million-dollar question. Implicit bias, homophobia, racism. They didn't want to get involved in a gay domestic dispute. They literally walked Konarak back into the apartment.
They walked him back to his death, William. They handed him back to the monster.
They went inside the apartment. They noted a foul smell, which was Tony Hughes's decomposing body in the next room, and accepted Dahmer's excuse that it was broken plumbing. And then they left.
The text says later on the radio dispatch, they were laughing about it. Reunited lovers.
Yeah, they laughed. And as soon as the door clicked shut, Dahmer injected more acid and Konarak died.
I can't imagine the terror of that boy. Seeing the police, thinking you're saved, and then watching them leave you there. It's the ultimate betrayal.
It emboldened him, Sarah. Dahmer said later that he couldn't believe his luck. He thought, if I can get away with this, with the police in my living room, I can get away with anything. And that kicked off the summer of screams.
The acceleration.
Exactly. June, July 1991, he was killing almost weekly. Matt Turner, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, Joseph Bradahoft. He was running out of space. He had bodies in the freezer, the fridge, the acid drum was full.
The smell must have been unbearable.
Neighbors were complaining constantly. He was using so much bleach and chemical solution that the fumes were toxic. He was cooking flesh. He was eating them.
The cannibalism. He said it made him feel like they were a permanent part of him. It's so primal and twisted.
It's the ultimate narcissism. You don't exist anymore. You are just fuel for me. And he was keeping trophies, skulls, painted, bleached. He was building an altar, Sarah. He wanted to make a shrine of skulls and incense where he could sit and, meditate on his power.
It's pure evil. There's no other word for it. But he was spiraling. He lost his job at the chocolate factory. He was about to be evicted.
The walls were closing in. He was sloppy. He was desperate. And that leads us to July 22nd, 1991, the end of the road.
Tracy Edwards.
The one who lived.
Thank God for Tracy Edwards. He met Dahmer at the mall. Same old story. Money for photos. But Tracy, he had street smarts. He sensed the vibe was off immediately.
He walked into apartment 213 and the smell hit him like a wall. And then he sees the boxes of acid just sitting out. Dahmer tries to handcuff him while pointing out the tropical fish, a classic distraction technique.
But he only gets one cuff on.
Right, and then the knife comes out. And this is the part that gives me nightmares. Dahmer puts on...
No way.
Yeah, he tells Tracy he watches it every day. He starts rocking back and forth, chanting. He tells Tracy, "I'm going to eat your heart."
He actually said that?
According to Edwards, yes. He was laying out his plan. But Tracy Edwards didn't panic, or if he did, he didn't show it. He played along. He engaged Dahmer. "Hey, you're my friend. It's cool. Let's just hang out." He de-escalated the situation for hours.
That takes a level of composure I don't think I would have. I would have been screaming.
He waited for his moment. He asked to go to the bathroom, but really he was eyeing the door. Dahmer got distracted for a split second. Maybe the alcohol, maybe arrogance, and Tracy punched him hard.
Yes!
He ran. He burst out of that apartment, one handcuff dangling from his wrist, and flagged down a patrol car.
officers Robert Routh and Rolf Mueller.
Imagine being those officers. Guy comes running up, handcuffed, screaming that a freak tried to kill him.
They go back to the apartment, and this time, the officers didn't just stand at the door. They went in. They smelled the smell. They asked about the handcuff key.
Dahmer tried to get it from the bedroom, didn't he?
He did. He tried to maneuver away, but Officer Mueller, he saw the open drawer.
The drawer.
He looked inside, and it wasn't just junk, it was Polaroids.
What did he see, William?
He saw bodies, dismembered, heads in the fridge, torsos. He picked up the photos, walked back to his partner, and said 3 words that ended the nightmare. "These are real."
Wow, these are real. That moment, the realization that this isn't a prank, this isn't a misunderstanding. You are standing in a slaughterhouse.
Dahmer realized it was over. He tried to lunge, they tackled him. And then the forensic team came in. And what they found, Sarah, it was a house of horrors. 7 skulls, 2 human hearts in the fridge, a torso in the freezer, a 57-gallon drum filled with acid and sludge.
It's too much. All those people, all those lives, just reduced to parts.
And 74 Polaroids documenting every step. He documented his own crimes. That was the smoking gun. There was no denying it.
And he didn't deny it, did he?
No, that's the strange part. Once he was caught, the mask fell off. He waived his right to a lawyer. He sat down with detectives Kennedy and Murphy, and he just talked for 60 hours.
60 hours?
He told them everything. He identified the victims from the photos. He explained the drilling, the eating, the shrine. He was calm, polite even. He said, "I created this horror, and it only makes sense I do everything to put an end to it."
It's so unsettling. It's like he was 2 different people. The monster in the apartment and the polite man in the interrogation room. Did he show any remorse?
He said he did. He said he wasn't driven by hate. He said, "I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted to keep them." He claimed he was sick. He said, "I should be dead for what I did."
Well, that brings us back to where we started this episode, the courtroom. Because when you confess to 17 murders, the question isn't, did you do it? The question becomes, why? And legally, are you sane?
Exactly. The trial became a battleground of psychology. The prosecution said he was evil but calculated. The defense said he was a sick man, driven by compulsions he couldn't control. Necrophilia, borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder.
They pleaded guilty but insane.
Right. And the families, Sarah, the families had to sit there. They had to listen to the medical examiners describe how their sons were butchered. They had to see the diagrams.
I can't even imagine the strength that took to sit in the same room as him.
There was one moment, Rita Isbell, she was the sister of Errol Lindsay, the victim of the drilling experiment. She gave a victim impact statement that, well, she screamed at him. She charged the table. She had to be restrained. She represented the raw fury that everyone was feeling.
Good for her. Honestly, someone had to scream.
Dahmer just sat there, stone-faced. He eventually read a statement claiming he hated no one, that he was sick, and that he had found God.
Found God. Convenient.
A lot of people thought so. But on February 15th, 1992, the jury made their decision. They didn't buy the insanity plea. They found him sane, guilty on all 15 counts.
15 consecutive life sentences?
Plus one more later for the Ohio murder. He was never getting out. He was sent to Columbia Correctional Institute. And you'd think that's where the story fades away. He rots in a cell and we forget him.
But that's not what happened.
No. Prison was a whole new chapter. He became a celebrity in the darkest sense. People sent him money. They sent him fan mail.
The fan mail phenomenon for serial killers always grosses me out. Who writes a love letter to a cannibal?
Sick people. But inside the prison, he was playing games. He was in protective custody for a year, but he fought to get into the general population. And once he was there, rumors started. He would shape his food into body parts. He would use ketchup to look like blood. He would whisper to inmates, "I bite."
So he wasn't this repentant Christian he claimed to be in court?
Or maybe he was both. It's complex. He did get baptized, May 10th, 1994, the same day John Wayne Gacy was executed, oddly enough. There was a solar eclipse that day.
Weird cosmic timing.
Very. But the other inmates, they weren't charmed. They were disgusted. And one man, Christopher Scarver, he was watching.
This is the end, isn't it?
November 28th, 1994. Dahmer is on cleaning duty. Bathrooms, gym. He's left alone with Scarver and another inmate, Jesse Anderson. No guards, for 20 minutes.
Why were they left alone? He was the most notorious killer in the world.
Protocol failure? Complacency? We'll never know for sure. But Scarver later said Dahmer poked him in the back, played a little game. Scarver didn't laugh. He pulled out a newspaper clipping he'd been saving, a story about Dahmer's crimes, about the cannibalism, the racism. He confronted him.
And then?
Scarver had a metal bar from the weight room, a 20-inch steel bar. He crushed Dahmer's skull.
Just like that.
Just like that. The man who drilled into the skulls of innocent boys died from massive head trauma. He was pronounced dead an hour later.
It feels biblical, almost. Eye for an eye.
Some called it justice. His mother, Joyce, was devastated. His father, Lionel, was heartbroken but resigned. They cremated him. There was actually a legal battle over his brain. His mom wanted it studied by scientists to see if there was a biological reason for his evil. His dad wanted it destroyed to honor Jeff's wishes.
Let me guess, the dad won?
The dad won. The brain was destroyed. We'll never know if there was a tumor or a misfire in the neurons.
I don't know if it would matter, William. Even if there was, he made choices. He chose to buy the acid. He chose to drill the holes.
That's the terrifying truth, isn't it? We want a reason. We want a tumor. We want a monster gene. But usually, it's just a man. A man who decided that his fantasies were more important than other people's lives.
And the families? Did his death bring them peace?
Closure is a myth, Sarah. Most of them never got bodies back to bury. They got bone fragments. They got memories of a police force that failed them. They got a media circus that turned their tragedies into Netflix shows and books.
It really makes you think about how we consume this stuff. Even us, right now. Are we helping or are we just staring at the car crash?
It's a fine line. We tell the story so we don't forget the victims like Konarak or Errol or Tony. We tell it so maybe next time a neighbor calls the cops when they smell something, or a cop checks an ID.
Yeah, it's a heavy one, William. This whole story, it sits heavy on your chest.
It does. It's the story of missed warnings, of a quiet boy in a quiet town who grew up to eat hearts. It's the story of the darkness that can live right next door. Apartment 213 is gone now. They demolished the building. It's just an empty lot.
A scar on the city.
Exactly. A scar. Listen, I know this one was brutal. The zombie details, the children, it's a lot to process.
It is. I think I'm going to need to go hug my dog for about an hour after this.
You and me both. But that's the reality of Jeffrey Dahmer. He wasn't a movie villain. He was real. And that's what makes it so terrifying.
Okay, I think that's all we can say for today.
I think so too. We've walked through the blood, the trial, and the grave. There's not much left but the silence.
If you guys have thoughts on the police negligence or the psychology, let us know. But please be respectful of the victims in the comments.
Always.
All right, I need to step away from the microphone for a bit.
Me too. Take a breath, everyone.
We'll see you in the next one.
Okay, I'm back. I have my tea. I think I'm ready to face the rest of this.
Take your time, Sarah. We ended on the concept of the zombie, and I think that's exactly where we have to pick it back up, because this wasn't just a stray thought Dahmer had. He actually tried to do it.
That's the part that keeps me up at night. It's one thing to kill, which is horrific enough, but to want to strip someone of their soul while keeping the body functioning, that is a level of control that I can't even wrap my head around.
And he tried it with Errol Lindsay. He was only 19, Sarah. A mama's boy, by all accounts. Just a good kid going to get a key cut.
Oh, God, 19. And Dahmer, he didn't just drug him. He used a drill while Lindsay was sedated but alive.
He drilled into his skull and injected hydrochloric acid.
William, stop. That is the stuff of nightmares. Genuine nightmares.
It is. And the tragedy is it didn't work the way Dahmer wanted. Lindsay woke up. He actually said, "I have a headache."
No way.
Yeah, can you imagine the confusion, the terror? And Dahmer, seeing this, seeing a person he tried to turn into a puppet actually speak to him, he just ended it. He strangled him.
It just shows that he viewed them as biology experiments, not people. Just meat and electricity. And then he did the thing with the skin.
He tried to fillet him, to keep the skin. He wanted it preserved.
I can't. I really can't.
I know, it's repulsive. But we have to look at this because it proves that escalation we talked about. He wasn't satisfied with death anymore. He needed possession, total, permanent possession.
And speaking of people he tried to possess, we need to talk about Tony Hughes, because I feel like his story got so twisted by the media.
Right, the Netflix series.
Exactly. The show painted this tragic romance like they had a relationship, but the reality? They met that night. Tony was deaf. He couldn't hear if Dahmer locked the door. He couldn't hear if there were noises in the apartment. He was just vulnerable.
It really is a disservice to the victims when Hollywood tries to give the killer a humanizing arc. Tony Hughes wasn't a lover. He was prey. Dahmer drugged him and left his body on the floor for days while he went out to hunt again.
And that hunt, William, this next part, this is the part that breaks me. Every time I read about this case, the story of Konarak Synthasampon destroys me.
The police failure?
It's not just failure, it's negligence on a criminal level. Konarak was 14, and he was the brother of the boy Dahmer had molested years earlier.
The statistical odds of that are insane.
It's like the universe was screaming, "Catch this man." So Konarak escapes, right? He's been drilled, like Lindsay. He's bleeding, he's naked, he's drugged out of his mind, stumbling down the street.
And those 3 women found him. Sandra Smith, Tina Spivey, Nicole Childress. They were the heroes here. They saw a child in distress and they called 911.
They did everything right. They called for help, and then officers Balcerzak and Gabrish show up. And what do?
They bought Dahmer's story. Dahmer, cool as a cucumber, says, "Oh, he's my 19-year-old boyfriend. He's just drunk."
A 14-year-old boy bleeding from the head, naked, and the women are screaming, "He's a child, look at him." And the police? They threatened to arrest the women for interfering.
It really highlights the biases of the time, Sarah. You have racial bias, Konarak was Laotian. You have homophobia, the police didn't want to get involved in a gay lover's spat. They just wanted to clear the call and leave.
They literally walked the victim back into the killer's apartment. Can you imagine the terror Konarak felt being dragged back into that smell, into that room with Tony Hughes's body still on the floor?
And the police were there. They were inside the apartment. They noted a smell but didn't investigate. They didn't run Dahmer's name. If they had run his name, they would have seen he was a registered sex offender on probation for molesting Konarak's brother.
It makes me want to scream. It really does. They handed a child back to a monster to be slaughtered. And afterwards, they were joking about it on the radio. Reunited lovers. It's sickening.
It cost Konarak his life, and it allowed Dahmer to kill 4 more people. Matt Turner, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, Joseph Braidhoff. They all died because those officers didn't do their job.
Those poor men. And at this point, Dahmer is spiraling, right? He's losing his job at the chocolate factory. He's about to be evicted. The smell is unbearable.
He's completely out of control. He's killing fast now. The cool-down period is gone. He's just filling the apartment with death. Maggots on the bodies, torsos and drums. He's living inside a graveyard.
It's like he knew the end was coming. He had to know. You can't live like that and expect to get away with it forever.
I think part of him wanted to be caught, or at least he didn't care anymore. Which brings us to July 22nd, 1991, the end of the line.
Tracy Edwards.
The man who lived.
God, reading about his experience, it plays out like a horror movie, but it's real life. He goes back to the apartment and immediately, the smell hits him.
And the boxes of acid just sitting in the open.
Right, and then the handcuff. Dahmer slaps one cuff on him and then puts on...
That movie detail is so chilling. Dahmer watching it, rocking back and forth, chanting, "I'm going to eat your heart?"
No way. He actually said that?
According to Edwards, yes. Dahmer was in a trance. He was listening to the devil on his shoulder. But Tracy Edwards was smart. He kept him talking.
That's so brave. To be in that situation, staring death in the face, and having the presence of mind to say, hey, let's have a beer, let's relax. He played along.
He had to. He calmed Dahmer down just enough to get a moment of distraction. And then, bam, he punches him and runs.
With the handcuffs still dangling from his wrist.
Exactly. He flags down the police, and this time, thank God, the officers listened. They went back to the apartment.
And that moment, when Officer Mueller opens the drawer.
The Polaroids.
That's the smoking gun. You can explain away a smell, you can explain away a handcuff, maybe, but you can't explain a drawer full of photos of dismembered bodies.
These are real. That's what the officer said. And Dahmer knew it was over. He fought briefly, but then he just deflated.
And the things they found, William, the inventory of that apartment, it sounds like something from a medieval dungeon, not a Milwaukee apartment in the 90s.
Heads in the fridge, hearts, a torso in the freezer, a drum of acid with remains, a shrine of painted skulls. It was a factory of death.
I can't imagine being those officers, walking into that, seeing that.
And then comes the confession. 60 hours. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He just spilled it all.
Why do you think that is? Was he proud or was he just relieved?
A bit of both, maybe. He said, "I created this horror, and it only makes sense I do everything to put an end to it." He seemed oddly self-aware. He knew he was sick. He knew it was wrong. But he also said he wouldn't have stopped if they hadn't caught him.
That's the scary part. He had no internal brakes.
Exactly. Which leads to the trial, the guilty but insane plea.
Which is always such a tricky legal maneuver. I mean, clearly, the man is not sane in the way you and I are sane. You don't eat people if you're sane. But legally?
Legally, he knew right from wrong. He tried to cover his tracks. He lied to the police. He functioned in society. That points to sanity in the eyes of the law.
It does. But watching the families at that trial, the pain in that room must have been suffocating. And Rita Isbell,
Errol Lindsay's sister.
that footage is iconic for a reason. When she screamed at him, when she charged the table, I felt that. She was channeling the rage of every single family member.
She was, and Dahmer just sat there, stone-faced. He said he accepted his punishment. "I tried and failed and created a holocaust." That's his own words.
15 consecutive life sentences, no death penalty in Wisconsin, so he goes to prison. And then things get weird. The baptism?
Yeah, he becomes a born-again Christian. He gets baptized in the prison whirlpool. And on the same day, John Wayne Gacy is executed in Illinois. And there was a solar eclipse.
Stop it. You're making that up.
I am not. It's one of those truth is stranger than fiction moments.
Do you think his remorse was real? Do you think he really found God?
Who knows? His father thought so, but his mother wasn't so sure. It's hard to reconcile the man who drilled holes in heads with the man seeking salvation. But prison justice caught up with him fast.
Christopher Scarver.
November 28, 1994, left alone in the gym bathroom. Scarver, Dahmer, and Jesse Anderson.
And Scarver just bludgeoned him with a weight bar.
He claimed God told him to do it. He confronted Dahmer with a newspaper clipping of his crimes. And that was it. The Milwaukee Cannibal was dead.
Beaten to death, just like his first victim, Stephen Hicks.
Violent symmetry.
It really is. And then, even after death, the drama didn't stop. His parents fighting over his brain.
And the judge wanted it studied. She wanted to know if there was a biological reason, a tumor, a misfiring neuron that made him this way. Lionel wanted to bury it and move on.
and the judge ordered it destroyed, so we'll never know.
We'll never know. It brings us back to that age-old question, nature or nurture. Was Jeffrey Dahmer born a monster, or was he made?
You know, looking at all of this, the hernia surgery, the distant parents, the repressed sexuality, the alcohol, it's a perfect storm. But plenty of people have bad childhoods and don't eat people.
That's the thing. He made choices. Every time he picked someone up, every time he drilled a hole, every time he lied to the police, that was a choice.
And the system made choices too. The police chose to ignore the smell. They chose to ignore the women screaming for help. They chose to believe the nice, polite white man over the bleeding Laotian boy.
That's the real horror story here. Not just the monster in the apartment, but the society that let him operate for 13 years.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About who we trust and who we ignore.
It does. And it's why this case still haunts us. Why we have 50 documentaries and movies about him. He looks like us. He lived in a normal apartment building.
The monster next door.
Exactly. Well, Sarah, I think we've reached the end of the road with Jeffrey Dahmer.
I think so too. I feel heavy. But it's an important story to tell. Not for him, but for the victims. For Konowarak, for Tony, for Errol, for all of them.
Absolutely. We have to remember them.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm going to go decompose on my couch for a while and watch cartoons.
I don't blame you.
But before I go,
William, well, that brings us to the end of another story from Detective Starborn.
we hope today's episode was interesting and captivating for you.
Just a reminder, new podcasts come out every single day, so don't miss out. Tomorrow, a new incredible story awaits you.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, now's the perfect time. And don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be waiting for you in the next Detective Starborn podcast.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.